PACT Act, which guarantees health care for veterans who suffer from toxic burn pit exposure, passes the Senate. Who voted against it? Shock jock and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones ordered to pay $4.1 million to parents of a child killed at Sandy Hook and $45 million in punitive damages, just to send a message. Feds charged 4 police officers in the raid that killed Breonna Taylor. Will there be justice? Merrick Garland sues Idaho over their extreme anti-abortion laws. Indicates that abortions must be done in the event of a medical emergency. Will this set a precedence for the entire country? Brittany Griner, WNBA basketball star, sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison labor camp. Will Biden make the deal with Putin to bring her home, or leave her to her fate? Tudor Dixon wins the nomination for the GOP to run for governor against incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat. Who do I want to win? All this can be heard on this week's Current Events on Tap. And good evening, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Current Events on Tap with yours truly, the host, Alex Kirsch. Each week I bring you this week's current events in a quick summary, then I give you my opinion on this topic. I'm not going to make any bones about it. I'm just going to tell you exactly how I feel about it, and if you don't like it, well, that's just too damn bad, isn't it? I will also, however, review a beer of the week. I pick one beer to review. It's based on price, pour, aroma, taste, and then I give it an overall rating. If this is your first time listening to this show, please do me a favor and like and share this podcast out. The more listeners, the better. I am in need of some serious clout, people. I'm not even going to lie about it, and I need your help to get me there. You can find this podcast at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today's an exception. You can find it, although, every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker. Or you can catch the replay on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. But hey, guess what? I'm also starting to gather followers on TikTok, and I plan on doing some segments of this show starting next week on TikTok. It's going to be in like little 1-minute segments, but you know what? Can't be perfect, right? So now you can see my glorious face on TikTok while you're subscribing to my channel, that is. So if you're not following me, first of all, why the hell not? Second off, give me a follow. Let's be friends. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Time to announce the beer of the week. The beer of the week is one that can be found only, as of right now, in a brewery, which is right down the road from me, which I absolutely love, in Richville, Michigan. It is a locally owned brewery called Innovators Beer Works. They make this delicious, absolutely spot-on beer called Berries and Cream Ale.
Berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream.
That's right, folks. Berries and Cream Ale. It might sound like it's not your typical kind of ale, but I can promise you this is something absolutely delicious. So, without further ado, let's go right ahead and talk about Berries and Cream Ale.
Berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream.
That's right, I'm definitely going to emphasize on it, and if you don't like it, well, that's just too damn bad. Anyway, Berries and Cream Ale is made by the Innovators Beer Works located in Richville, Michigan. Innovators has only been around since the March of 2020, and this is one of their newest beers that is a specialty ale that you can order on tap. However, a little bit more into it, you can also order it in glass, a pint, and a mug club, or if you want to sample other beers along with it, you can even get it in a flight, and now the flight usually comes in a flight of 4. So, without further ado, let's go right ahead and go right into the rating scheme. For price, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. This is a solid price for something that gets made in-house. Come on. You got to sort of support your local businesses, people. Definitely support the local businesses. You can get a beer glass for $2, a pint for $5, a mug club for $4.50, and a flight for $6. Now, it might seem like much, but you got to remember, you're getting beer that is made in-house. Ale that is made in-house, porter that's made in-house. I mean, come on, you can't beat that. You got to support the local businesses, people. It is that simple. And, you know, you may not be able to get this in a six-pack, but you know what? This is something that's an absolute exception. Buying a beer and supporting a local business, to me, is absolutely essential. It's what makes us American, proud to be Americans, for crying out loud. So go down to your local brewery, buy a beer down there every once in a while, support their business, because you know what? That beer's got to go somewhere. Why not down that esophagus into your belly? Come on, people, get with the times, for crying out loud. But yes, I give this a 4 out of 5. The pour. I'm going to give this a solid, 3 out of 5. There's pretty much little to no head that you're going to get along with it, but it pours very, very easily. But honestly, I don't think head is its intent. What its main intent is the next two categories, which, for example, its aroma, which I'm giving a solid 100% 5 out of 5. Now, for those that aren't familiar with drinking kefir is basically a probiotic that what you do is you get these kefir grains, you pour it in a jar, and then you pour water in it and add sugar and whatnot. It's a very, very lengthy process. It takes about 5 days to ferment all the way through. But what comes out after, it's like drinking like a fermented sparkling juice of some sort. That's pretty much what this tastes like, right? And it's basically like drinking kefir or some sparkling berry water of some sort, like the waters that you buy, or like the sparkling waters, that's pretty much what it seems like when you smell it. We just grab that aroma. It's very, very pleasant. There's no bitterness to it. It's just very sweet smelling. You can just pick up the berries and the cream in regards to that. But let's get into really why I love this beer, this ale. The taste. The taste is a 5 out of 5 without a doubt. Truly a symphony for the taste buds. A very delightful taste of berries. What kind of berries? I don't know. I don't care. It just tastes delicious. But you can just get that slight hint of cream inside of there. This beverage is so refreshing to drink after a day of work, or you just want to hang out with your friends or family at a social gathering of sorts. It definitely reminds me of this Pog Pale Ale that I gotten when I was in Pennsylvania when I visited my friend Big Sarge. And Pog is basically passion fruit, blood orange, and guava. Truly a magnificent tasting ale. But if you're in the area of Richfield and this ale is available, order it and consume this delightful beverage. Overall, it's going to get a 4 out of 5. It's a great tasting ale. It's very unique, and the fact that it's made in a local brewery that I can go down to and buy whenever it's available makes it all the better. Please go down to Innovators Beer Works at 9264 West Saginaw, Richfield, Michigan, 48758. Truly a magnificent place with great food and quality beer. No, they're not paying me for this beer. I'm just doing this because I believe that we should support small businesses. Iloveit it. That place. It's amazing. They serve great food, and yes, their beer is absolutely fantastic. Now, on to current events. So last week when I came home to see that the PACT Act that had been in talks of being passed, and just to give a little context, right? The history of the PACT Act is basically, was started off by the family of Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson of the Ohio National Guard, and it stands for Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act. It was introduced in June by Mark Takano, Democrat of California. This bill covers the burn pits and toxic exposures related to the Gulf War campaign and both Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns. Also, it covers veterans who suffer from the effects of Agent Orange from Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia, Laos, Guam, American Samoa, and Johnson Atoll. And it even covers the Camp Lejeune Justice Water for contamination. Now, for those that are not aware, that what it basically means is like Marines and their families and civilian workers stationed at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987, I believe, were exposed to water that's contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals such as benzene, TCE, trichloroethylene, and perchlorethylene, and vinyl chloride. These chemicals were found in two of the primary water treatment facilities on base, Hadnot Point and Tarawa Terrace. Oh my goodness, I butchered that, okay? Please forgive me, okay? And it was covered up for decades. Now, I don't know about y'all, but if you were on post, on base at that time, and you found this out, you'd be a little pissed off, wouldn't you? I sure as hell would be. But the thing is when it comes down to these burn pits, I've known these burn pit issues have been an issue for quite some time. Now, a little bit of context for my background in this regard and why this is so important to me. From 2003 all the way in my first deployment, I burned shit. That is correct. I burned feces. We would poop inside of a, half of a barrel inside of these outhouses. We'd have to pull these barrels out, pull diesel inside of there, and light them on fire and stir them around until it just kind of came down into a powdery substance. Then we'd have to bury it. Yes, I had to do this. And that's not the only time I was subjected to something like these burn pits. There was trash piles all over the country of Iraq, in certain parts of Baghdad that were always on fire, that we were surrounded by. But one of the most egregious ones was when I was in Afghanistan in 2010. Now, I'm an artilleryman. At the time, we had 3 howitzers occupying 1 fire base. Now, there was an operation that was getting ready to go down, and they were afraid that some of our howitzer tubes, like whenever we'd fire these missions, were going to hit something called like a J-lens balloon. A J-lens balloon is like a giant blimp, an eye in the sky kind of deal, and it's basically can be used to survey the area and shit like that, right? Well, anyway, long story short, they were afraid that our howitzer rounds were going to come close to hitting the cable tied to the ground, and it was going to float away. And, long story short, they basically felt like we were a threat because we need to be able to support the infantry, Cav Scouts, tankers, everybody that was outside the wire risking their lives every single day. So we, long story short, we also ended up, checking, going through all the missions that they were going to send us because they were all pre-planned targets. And what we would do is we would check inside the bore, which basically means looking from one end of the tube to the other end of the tube to see where if you could see the sky, then basically you knew you weren't going to hit anything. And guess what? We looked and we saw that the tube was nowhere near the J-lens balloon. It's like, hey, we're not going to hit any of these targets. And they're like, well, shut up and just do what you're told. So we drove down there and we occupied a howitzer. I know because my section was the one that did this. Well, anyway, where we were is a wide open area with no cover, no concealment. Pretty much anybody could walk past us at any point, at any given time, even Afghan police, Afghan civilians. And here's the kicker. We were within spitting distance of a burn pit. And this burn pit was burning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, yes, even on Christmas, okay? And what made it even worse was the fact that they said, hey, you'll be down there for 3 days tops. Each section, these 3 sections had to rotate in 12-hour shifts every day for a month. That's right. So 12 hours, one section goes down, then another section comes down, does another 12 hours, and then the next section comes down, and then it starts back over again. This went on for about a month. So I was next to a burn pit. I slept next to this burn pit. I ate next to this burn pit. Even though all of us protested us going down next to this burn pit, not just because of the dangers of the burn pit, but because of the fact that we were so exposed to everybody else. But no, we just had to do what we were told. We had to do what we were told. And, I don't blame the people like the platoon leadership or the battery leadership that told us to do this, because they probably fought the good fight and they were basically trumped. They said, shut up and just tell your people to get down there and do this, because guess what? We're not the ones that are going to be out down there at this burn pit. So this is a very personal issue to me, and let alone the fact that the Agent Orange issue is very, very personal to me. So another little personal thing. My father fought in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969. He spent 14 months in the country of Vietnam. Granted, he didn't see any action, but he was subjected to Agent Orange. And it took 44 years for the multiple myeloma that affected his body. Now, multiple myeloma is basically bone cancer to affect his body, and he died in July of 2013. Dad, I love you and I miss you. And the fact that so many people, and the fact that our government still will not acknowledge that Agent Orange was caused by maybe, certain organizations, I don't know, Monsanto, I don't know. They basically created Agent Orange. They sprayed it around. They affected the Vietnamese people. They affected our soldiers, our sailors, our Marines, whatever you want to put it. These people were affected by this, and people still not been held to account. Why? Because our government had a part in it, simply put. Now, people may say I'm being a bit, overzealous about it, but, this is a very personal issue to me. But, however, this bill covers all of that. Now, last week, 25 senators said, no, sorry, veterans. You know what? We're not going to vote yes on this bill because we think that there's been all kinds of pork bellow spending into this. Now, I want y'all to know that none of that is true. There have been organizations upon organizations upon organizations within the veteran community that helped put this bill together, and I can guarantee with every fiber of my existence and every dollar I make that this bill that they helped write did not have any kind of pork barrel spending, no matter what any Ted Cruz might tell you, or Pat Toomey, or any of his other scumbags might tell you. Because Jon Stewart worked along these VA organizations. He worked along John Tester and Kristen Gillibrand to get this bill passed. But the last minute, these guys said no. 25 senators said no. I went on TikTok. I was pissed off. I was angry, and it went viral on TikTok. It's got like over 7,000 views, and you know what? I don't even care that it got. I just want people to know how angry I was and how everybody should be angry about this. But then I also made a TikTok about how they finally passed the bill, and I was really grateful. But the sad thing is that the day after they said no to that bill, a veteran traveling alongside Jon Stewart told members of the Senate staff that a friend of his, that they said no to the bill. He got a message from that guy's wife, says he just killed himself because he really felt like his country had let him down for the last time, and he killed himself. How horrible is that? Absolutely horrible. Now, there are people out there say, oh, well, that's always how. You know what? I don't care. The fact that it happened is something we should all care about. One soldier, one veteran committing suicide because they feel their government has let them down for the last time is one veteran too many. It's that simple. I mean, this shouldn't have even been a question. This should have been the easiest bill to pass, but for some god-awful reason, these absolute assholes in Washington who will always say, they will always tweet on Veterans Day, never forget those who fought for us. Memorial Day, never forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice. On the day of 9/11, they say, never forget those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. But then it took being shamed to do their job because they're always worried about some sort of a budgeting, or they're worried about, there's some pork barrel spending when there's absolutely none. But we're just doing this because we're really pissed off because the Democrats are going to be the good guys this time around. So we're going to put politics behind it. And that's exactly what I think what happened. Honestly, there are probably some guys that's like, you know what, maybe we screwed up. Yeah, you damn right did screw up. There's some of these senators out there that really need to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror. But 11 senators, when it passed this week, it was 86-11. Here's the name of the 11 senators that voted no. Senator Mitt Romney from Utah. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. No surprise there, honestly. Senator Mike Crapo from Idaho. Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Senator Cynthia Loomis from Wyoming. Senator James Risch from Idaho. Senator Richard Shelby from Alabama. Senator Pat Toomey from PA, from Pennsylvania, yep. Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. And then Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina. Those are the names of the 11. And yes, Pat Toomey, I'm looking right at you. We're all looking right at you. The veteran community is looking right at you. This goes to show how little you care about the veteran community. You could spin your partisan politics however you want to, but honestly, I think you did this for partisan reasons. That's it. That's all you did it for. And I'm really ashamed of Mitt Romney. I voted for Mitt Romney in 2012 for the election. And I don't regret that because I truly believe that he could have been the next best hope possible. I mean, I didn't even think he was that great. But the thing is, I felt like he deserved the chance. But you know what? He didn't win the election, and I accepted that. But Rand Paul, I am seriously not surprised because this is the same clown that actually said, no, I'm not going to vote to take care of 9/11 for first responders because we don't have the funding for all this. He's an idiot. His father should be ashamed of him. And I think he's just an absolute embarrassment, honestly. But that's the name of the 11 people right there for those that are curious about that. But again, there's haters out there that think that Jon Stewart was doing this for attention. Let me tell you all something, okay? Jon Stewart is one of the greatest Americans we have in this country. And I'm not just saying that just because I'm a fan of his. I'm saying this because he puts his money where his mouth is. He is not afraid to get out there and advocate for people like me. He advocated for me. He advocated for my deceased father. He advocated for 9/11 first responders, dead and alive. He's advocated for all of us. He deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom, without a doubt. He is a hero, an American patriot in my book. But guess who wasn't down there advocating for us veterans? It wasn't Tucker Carlson. It wasn't Sean Hannity. It damn sure wasn't anybody on the GOP that claims to love the military. It wasn't any Kid Rock, wasn't any Ted Nugent, it was not Mike Lindell, and I didn't even hear the last president who claims to love the military so much who does not. He never made one statement about this. If he really cared about the military, he would have stepped foot in Washington, D.C. alongside the veterans community and every organization to say, this is wrong, we need to do something about this. It's because he doesn't care. It's that simple. He does not care about the veteran community. He will only say it whatever gets him elected. Jon Stewart did it because he knows it's the right thing to do. This is not a partisan issue. It shouldn't even be a partisan issue because you got veterans and active duty military on both sides of the political spectrum. There's some that aren't even a part of a political party that believe in this. We should all be making sure that every veteran gets the same quality, adequate care across the board, and that all veterans are taken care of. But the thing is, though, people turn this into a partisan issue. They turn this into a political issue, which is wrong. Healthcare as a whole shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's something we should all be agreeing with across the board. And I used to be the kind of person to say, well, healthcare is a privilege. Only certain people should get free healthcare. I no longer believe that. I believe everybody is entitled to good quality healthcare. And if that means my tax dollars go up, so be it. It's that simple. But, kind of touching in on this, and I'm going to insist on a little bit of drama. There was a YouTube channel that I got shown to go check this out, and the YouTube channel is called Veteran Biker. Now, this guy said he did 21 years in the Navy, which I'm inclined to believe. I've got no reason to doubt that. I don't know the guy. I've only seen 2 videos of his. But his video was talking about how climate change was in the bill. But he never produced the proof for it. He just said, oh, you just need to do some research. Now, I looked over the bill. I even did a quick word search, and I typed in climate change, not in there. I typed in weather, not in there. Typed in rain, not in there. Well, except for like rain that like might be incorporated with like Agent Orange and some shit like that. But the thing is, this guy made a dangerous claim with no proof to back it up with. If you're hearing me right now, Veteran Biker, yeah, I'm talking about you, dude. You made a claim that isn't true. You made a claim that has no shred of evidence behind it whatsoever, and yet you call us trolls. Because he even said in the most recent video that it got passed, he says, trolls came out from under the bridges, but he never proved his claim. I asked him multiple times, please prove the claim. Drop the page that it's on. And the thing is, there were so many people that said, you just didn't read the bill. I did read the bill. There's some people saying, oh, there was pork that was put in the bill. There was no pork put in the bill. Do you think any veteran organization, like I said, would have allowed this bill to go through if it did not go to veterans? This was directed for veterans and veterans alone. There is no climate change involved in there. Anybody that believes that is just an absolute moron. But when I asked him to prove this claim, he just said, oh, all the pet projects of the Democrats is climate change. He's a liar. Plain and simple. He is a liar to the 10th degree. And if he hears this, yes, I am calling you a liar. A liar. At the end of the day, once again, when it comes down to veterans issues, it should not be partisan. I mean, if Democrats would have voted against this, I would have been absolutely furious with the Democrats. And if it's the Republicans across the board, even if it was Ted Cruz said, yes, we need to fund these veterans to make sure they're taken care of, I would have sung his praises. But, it's Ted Cruz. He's spineless. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. It's that simple. But at the end of the day, the people who gave a shit, the people who stood out there on fire watch day in and day out from last week until this week to make sure that this bill got passed, Burn Pits 360, Grunt Style, the Veterans Foreign Wars, Jon Stewart, everybody, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for everything that you did for us. Thank you for my welfare, all my brothers and sisters who served, and especially my father. So, yes, Alex Jones has just been hammered with $4 million in compensatory charges to Scarlett Lewis and Neil Heslin. They are the parents of one of the children that was killed in the Sandy Hook shooting of 2012. And they've also been awarded a whopping $45.2 million in punitive damages just to send a message. And you know what? Yes, to send a message. Because, even though we can all agree that people have the right to freedom of speech, people can say whatever they want to without reprisal from the government. But that doesn't mean that people cannot hold you accountable for your speech, and that's exactly what happened with Alex Jones. This absolute colossal moron insisted that Sandy Hook was a false flag operation with no proof or evidence whatsoever. Now, when Sandy Hook first happened, I did have a couple questions, like why is it that they formed a perimeter? Why is it nobody was going in to save these children from Adam Lanza? What is it? Like, are we being told the whole story? But the thing is, though, I'm not going to say that it was a fake. I'm simply wondering, why is it that they hesitated for so long? Now, granted, I wasn't there. I can't comment on the matter. But these parents lost their children that day. Just like in Uvalde. These parents lost their children. And this guy, Alex Jones, had the audacity to say, oh, it's just a false flag operation. This actually didn't happen. These kids were all just actors. These were professional actors. It's just a psyop mission to take away our Second Amendment. 1776 is the whole 9 thing. That's exactly what Alex Jones was doing. He's an absolute colossal moron. And the fact that this guy in court tried so hard to defend himself, and he damn near, I think he committed perjury a couple times, actually. Because he insisted that he never said anything of the sort. But guess what? His own lawyers, which I think is glorious, absolutely glorious, insist that they accidentally, I say in quotations, sent 2 years worth of text messages to the prosecutor. So now they have proof that he committed perjury. And I tell you, that guy looked stunned. He looked shocked. He looked absolutely mortified at the fact of how many times he got put in check by the prosecution, by the judge. He says, this is not your TV show. You don't get to lie around here. Even though as many times he tried to lie. And the thing was, and here was like the amazing thing, is that this guy tried to insist that he was the one that was being victimized around here. And nothing could be further from the truth. This guy is not a victim. Not by a long shot. This dude is not a victim. This guy is a bully. That's all he is. He is a conspiracy theorist. He is a bully. And he's an absolute scumbag. But the thing is, though, there are people out there that still listen to him. There are people out there that still consider him a legitimate source. I think it's probably because he's another one of those Trump loyalists. He loves him some Donald Trump. He loves him some of that guy. But get this. It gets worse. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I hope gets voted the hell out because she is an absolute toxic piece of person. She quoted this on Twitter. I'm going to text my friend Alex Jones how much I, along with countless millions of people, are proud of him for the answer. Yes, we all know what the relationship was with the Clintons, Jeffrey Epstein, and whoever else, and pedophilia. Because he decided to bring up, you mean like the association between Jeffrey Epstein and the Clintons? Oh, yeah, let's not pretend and acknowledge the fact that, even Jeffrey Epstein hung out with Donald Trump for the longest time, and Donald Trump knew that this guy was into young girls, but let's not even, go into that. But the thing is Alex Jones is a fraud. He is a 100% fraud. And the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene would call Alex Jones her friend also calls her into question. I mean, there's no question. I mean, this woman is an absolute nutcase. And the fact that she actually re-won her nomination a while back for her district just tells you a lot about that district, essentially. She is an idiot. She is a moron. And people say the Democrats got their fair share of morons. I mean, people like to bring up AOC. I would love to put up like a shouting match or like a debate between the two. And I'm pretty sure AOC would mop the floor of Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's got no platform. She's got no position. She's done nothing she's been in office. I mean, I don't get the appeal. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about Marge. I'm here to talk about Alex Jones and the fact that this guy and I share the same name, which is so absolutely unfortunate. But the thing is, though, Alex Jones is a fraud. But now to know that he is more than likely going to be bankrupt from this is just, oh, God, I love it. I love the fact that this guy is going to be financially ruined for this. So guess what? Alex Jones. He fucked around and he found out. The 4 cops involved in the death of Breonna Taylor have been arrested by the FBI. Brett Hankinson, Joshua James, as well as Sergeant Kyle Meany, and Detective Kyle Hannah Goodlett has not been arrested, but she has, however, been charged. The charges, and this is the last time I checked, and this was according to Vice News. I've checked other articles, but this is Vice actually was the one that had it all laid out. The charges include deprivation of civil rights against Hankinson for firing multiple shots through a window of Breonna Taylor's apartment. The 3 other officers have been charged with conspiracy for violation of the Fourth Amendment rights of Breonna Taylor by submitting a false affidavit to secure a warrant to search her place of residence in an investigation involving drugs. However, the other officers involved in her death have not and will not be charged or arrested due to the fact that they have no knowledge that this arrest was going to be bogus. Now, there's a lot that kind of ties into this. There are people out there that are wondering, oh, well, wait a second. The cops that shot into the apartment, they were only defending themselves. Well, yeah, of course. But the thing is, though, so was the guy that was in the apartment, the boyfriend. He had no idea who was at the door. He didn't hear the cops announce that they were at the door. And so he returned fire when he saw them entering the apartment. Because you know what? Honestly, anybody can say that they're cops. The fact of the matter is according to eyewitness testimony, they said, boom, 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 police, and then just busted in the door. Not even giving people a chance to answer the door. So you have no idea who's behind that door. And the thing is like, it's the fact that these people, like, had these cops done their due diligence, they would have found that the guy they were looking for was already in jail at the time. But this is why it's so dangerous. It's so imperative that every cop that's involved needs to do their due diligence. And you know what? Make sure that, for one, they're at the right place, and 2, that the guy that's arrested is not already in the system. I mean, oh, God, it's just... But the thing is, though, everyone that says, oh, well, Breonna Taylor, she was involved in a drug criminal ring. This woman was an EMT. She had no criminal record, from what I understand. And the fact of the matter is that she was killed, and it was kind of swept under the rug until finally her family won a $12 million settlement. If the cops didn't do anything wrong, why did they settle? This is what kills me, though, is the fact that we, the taxpayers, pay these settlements. And I'm not complaining about the fact we pay the settlements. It's the fact that these settlements have to... Nobody gets prosecuted to begin with. I mean, this is why there needs to be a higher degree of accountability within certain police departments. You can't just expect people to say, oh, well, you know, he did fine. He's a cop. He obviously defended himself. You know, Daniel Shaver was believed to have, you know, the cop that killed Daniel Shaver was believed to have defended himself because he was reaching for something. The guy wasn't reaching for anything. He was terrified out of his mind. You know, this is why I continue to say I fully support the cops when they are in the right. Anytime there's a cop shooting, there has to be heavily scrutinized at any point right now. Why? Because of shootings like this involving the death and possibly murder of Breonna Taylor. Because she didn't get shot because she was malicious. She got shot because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, which happened to be her own apartment. And it's wrong. The cops were in the wrong. The cops were there for the wrong reasons. They violated her rights as her civil rights as a citizen of this country. They went into that apartment, they killed her, and of course, you know, the boyfriend, he was released because of free of all wrongdoing. And honestly, I agree with that. But it's just completely unfortunate because the thing is like there are so many people out there that think, oh, well, you know, she was obviously involved in a drug pin ring, you know. It just really bothers me nowadays. At one point when I used to think about this, like, well, you know, I'm just going to wait to see, like, how all this plays out. Because there was a lot of protests and riots that took place in the event of, because of the death of Breonna Taylor. I understand it, though. I definitely do. Because for some reason, whenever a person like Breonna Taylor gets killed, other people will find a justification for it. They will justify it in some way, shape, or form without a second thought. They won't even take the time to investigate whether this was a good shoot or not. We should. We, the people, have a right to know whether this was a good shoot or not. It needs to be completely transparent. That way, if it goes to show that the cops were in the right, the people will be satisfied. Will all people be satisfied? Of course not. But you know what? You can't do anything to control that because they probably had their mind made up a long time ago. But if the cops were in the wrong, This also goes to show that there will be justice. There needs to be justice for Breonna Taylor. She had no reason, there was no reason for her to be killed that evening. That's what Attorney General Merrick Garland said. There was no reason for her to die that evening. None whatsoever. You could blame whoever you want to, but the fault lies within the law enforcement that's supposed to do their job and do their job properly. And I don't care if people have a problem with me saying this. We should be holding up our police to a higher expectation because that's what their job is. They're supposed to identify the threat and understand whether this is the right house they're actually entering. Far too many times has there been situations where police have raided inside of a house and lobbed a flashbang grenade that burned a child or shot the wrong person or arrested the wrong damn person. And they insisted that, well, you know what? You could have been the wrong person, which is the wrong answer to begin with. And again, this isn't an anti-cop bit. It's merely about making sure that the cops are in the right. The cops can be right 100 times, but it's that 101 time when they're wrong, and that's what people focus upon. That's what they need to understand. That's why anytime there's a bad cop, you got to get rid of them. Good cops should not be punished for prosecuting bad cops. If you are a bad cop, you should not be a cop, period. You should be out. Maybe running a hot dog stand or some shit like that. But again, Breonna Taylor did not need to die. And hopefully we're going to find out more about this case as, the trial proceeds. So earlier this week, Attorney General Merrick Garland went after the state of Idaho. Now, for those who are not aware, the state of Idaho is a very, very conservative state. Heavily conservative. So the reason why he went after Idaho is because Idaho has we're getting ready to put in some very, very restrictive pro-life laws into place, okay? Once this law, now I'm just going to kind of break it down like from what I understand, okay? And this is what he had quoted. The Department of Justice quoted this. Under the Idaho law, once effective, any state or local prosecutor can subject a physician to indictment, arrest, and prosecution merely by showing that an abortion has been performed without regard to the circumstances. The law then puts the burden on the physician to prove an affirmative defense at trial. Advocates for sexual assault survivors have said that rape and incest exception is essentially useless because Idaho's public record law doesn't allow law enforcement agencies to release reports when a case is still under investigation, a process that generally takes weeks or months. I want everybody to understand this, okay? Regardless, and even if people that saw the debate I had against Zen Shapiro on Destiny's platform, I may not have done very well there, but I just want everybody to understand something. My position still remains absolutely crystal clear. If a woman is raped, she has no obligation to that life whatsoever. If she wishes to terminate that pregnancy, she should have every right to. She should not be forced and condemned to motherhood. Basically, anybody that says that, a woman should never have an abortion because she was raped, you're basically saying that the rapist has more rights to impregnate her than she has the right to terminate that pregnancy. And it's so horrendously bad that we've got people in this country that still believe that a woman who gets raped should carry a child to term, when half of these idiots wouldn't even have the balls to tell a rape victim, hey, if you get pregnant, you got to keep that baby. They insist they do, but they do not. I can guarantee that. But what makes this so unfortunate is the fact that in the case of rapes take an exceedingly long time to prosecute, especially with the amount of evidence that needs to come forward. Because not all rapists are going to come forward. It's like, yeah, I did it. Some of them are going to maintain their innocence that they didn't do it, and then it's going to drag out into trial. And then the victim's got to face her rapist, which is really traumatic for them. And it's just, it's really unbelievable that the state of Idaho would even entertain the idea that a physician should be prosecuted for doing his or her job, especially in the case of medical necessity. Whether you like it or not, an abortion is a medical procedure. It is a necessary medical procedure. And the fact that Idaho is really going to have the balls to tell women what they can or cannot do is absolutely shocking, because the majority of the people that are making these decisions can't even carry a baby. They're men. Simple as that. They can't carry a baby to term, but yet they want to be the ones making these decisions. I mean, they're not the ones that have to go through this, but instead they're the ones making all the decisions, which is absolutely frightening. What people need to understand is when it comes down to health care, when it comes down to abortions, it's not because we're pro-abortion. We're just all about one thing, and that's choice. A woman's right to choose. And all these pro-life advocates is like, oh, well, wait a second. What about the men? Don't they have a say? Well, guess what? That's between her and the guy. We've got no say in the matter. Anybody that wants to, anybody that wants to continue to say, maybe they should have a conversation. Well, guess what? Yeah, they should have a conversation about it, and it's got nothing to do with you and me. It's got nothing to do with me and them and the government either. For a bunch of people that say that they are very pro-limited government, they're very pro-big government when it comes down to dealing with a woman's uterus. They'll say, well, it's not really her body. Well, guess what? Yes, the hell it is, whether you like it or not. The science backs it up. But, it really just bothers me to no end. But I'm so glad that Attorney General Merrick Garland is basically blasting the state of Idaho because this was the first state that was going to put these laws into effect. And he's basically saying, no, kiss my ass, that's not happening. So what kind of a precedence is this going to set for the rest of the country? Well, we all just saw what happened in Kansas. The majority of people in Kansas voted that a woman still has a right to choose. And Kansas is a very heavily conservative state. And I'm so glad to see that so many people came out in support for a woman's right to choose. And hopefully, ever since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and sent it back to the states, and the conservatives were banking on this as being a big issue, hopefully this is going to turn out Democrats in force and members of the Progressive Party or what have not, or people that are pro-choice to get out there and vote for candidates that are also pro-choice. Merrick Garland has done a fantastic job, and he needs to keep pushing forward on this matter because, damn it, a woman has a right to choose. So earlier this week, Brittany Griner was the WNBA star who was arrested for smuggling. I'm just using quotations again because nobody knows if that's true or not because we are talking about Russia, right? A very corrupt country. Anyway, after pleading guilty, she was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian labor camp. And President Biden wants to make a swap for Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan, who was sentenced to 16 years for espionage, which he insists he didn't do. And in return, the Russian government's going to get Viktor Bout, a convicted Russian arms trafficker who's been sentenced to 25 years in prison. That's what the bargain's going to be. And according to some sources, Lavrov of the Russian government says, okay, yeah, we'll talk to you about making this deal. Now, people in this country are really showing their true colors about this. They're basically saying, well, guess what? She made her bed. She lied in it. She should never have snuck drugs in there in the first place. Yeah, I get you, okay? The fact of the matter is she's still an American citizen. And for those that are saying, oh, well, she knelt for the anthem, she hates America. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people that hate America, but they're still American citizens. They're still entitled to our freedoms. There's people out there that still protest against our government saying that Biden's not my president and shit. But guess what? If they get arrested, they are still bound and protected by the Constitution of the United States, and they have those rights to say things about our government. Just like Brittany Griner has every right to kneel for the national anthem, whether you like it or not. Now, should she have possibly smuggled this cannabis oil that she had? Probably not. Yes, she pled guilty. She made a statement. But how do we know that she actually wasn't coerced? That she was convinced, hey, just make this statement, you'll be fine. How do we know that didn't actually take place? How do we know that she wasn't forced to make this statement and forced to plead guilty? How do we know what really happened over there? We don't. Because let's just break it down to brass taxes. Russia is definitely not a friend of ours. Russia is more than likely using her as a political prisoner. Why? For one, she's an American. America is supporting Ukraine. Ukraine has been invaded by Russia. We are supplying them with the finances, we are supplying with them arms, and we are basically we united all of NATO against Russia. So she's an American. That's strike one for her. Two, she's a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Russia is very anti-gay, very homophobic. 3, She's a minority. Let's make no mistake about it, people. She is a political prisoner for those three reasons. They could give a damn about that cannabis oil. We're talking about a country that shoots itself up to cheat in the Olympics. You think they give a damn about the cannabis oil? They targeted her simply because of who she is. For those three categories. She is a political prisoner. And you know what? The fact that President Biden's willing to make this exchange, I already knew that probably was going to be a high likelihood that he's going to make this deal. Now, whether this goes through or not is not up to me. It's not up to anybody else but the president. So it's way too many, pay levels way above my pay grade. But the fact of the matter is that whether this deal goes through or not, Biden is not going to come out looking pretty. If the deal doesn't go through, people are going to say he's too weak. He's not going to do anything about it. He's going to let her rot in prison, even though people don't care about her. But if the deal does go through, they're going to say Biden's weak. They're bringing somebody back that hates America. She doesn't deserve to come back to America. She hates this country. That's exactly what people are going to be saying about her. They're going to say Biden's weak. They're saying Biden shouldn't have done anything. He should have made the deal. And then they're going to say, oh, he should have made the deal, but he's not going to because he's too weak, because he's dementia. He doesn't know where he's at. That's exactly what's going to play out as. That's just because people that are just so anti-Biden, they just don't care what he does. It's going to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of deal. Do I think she should be brought home? Yes. Do I think she should ever go back to Russia? No. She needs to stay the hell away from Russia, honestly. But honestly, if she should come back, she's still entitled to the same beliefs as she's had before. Let's remember something. She says that her father served in the military too. She's a military brat. So she understands the sacrifices that people make for this country. But now that she sees how people treat her, I mean, you expect her to be thankful when she has people like tell her how thankless she is and how she hates her own country? All you're doing is just making it even worse. She should come back, and we should welcome her home when she does come home, whenever that might be. So Tudor Dixon has won the nomination for the GOP, and now she's going to be running against the now Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So the stage has been set. This is for the state of Michigan. The stage has been set. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of background on Tudor Dixon. She was born in Illinois. She got a bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Kentucky. She moved to Michigan in 2002 after her dad, who passed away. He purchased the West Michigan Steel Foundry in Muskegon in a bankruptcy sale and began to operate as Michigan Steel. She worked in the steel industry for a while until she left in 2009 to start a family with her husband. And ever since then, she's done a few documentaries. She produced a film called Dummycrats, and then she also did a film that can be found on YouTube called Transitions. It's basically like some sort of a creepy, weird-looking vampire, low-budget movie. I don't know. I haven't found it yet. I'm still looking for it, though. But long story short, the main reason why she won the nomination is because of one reason and one reason only. Trump endorsed her. That's right. That is 100% correct. Trump endorsed her. She has no real policies or positions. It's just the fact that she was endorsed by Trump, and that's enough. That's why people supported her more than likely. But even though I say she doesn't have any real positions, I'm going to read some of the positions that she has. When it comes down to education, she wants to distribute tutoring certificates. She wants to preserve parents' rights to understand what the curriculum is being taught in school. She wants to protect girls' sports to ensure that biological girls are the only ones competing in sports. Improve civic and financial literacy. Create education savings accounts. That's what she believes in there. The economy. Now, here's what's ridiculous. She thinks that the economy is failing in Michigan. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. She believes in reducing personal income tax, upscale workforce training and emphasize the trades, slash 40% of regulations in 4 years. Now, that's so stupid because does she not understand that regulations are actually necessary in order to make some businesses function? Because you can't expect some of these regulations to regulate themselves. You can't expect these businesses to regulate themselves. It doesn't work like that. That's why there are so many oil spills all across the country, because you let some of these oil industries regulate themselves. Make Michigan open for business. She believes that rapidly enact pro-growth policies and rehabilitate the state's image as hostile to businesses. It's not that way. Is she crazy? Oh, yes, of course. Election integrity. Sign strong voter ID laws. Reform mail ballots. Create tough criminal penalties for voter fraud. Ban Zuckerbucks. Clean up voter rolls. Can we just all remember that voter fraud is statistically irrelevant? So voter ID laws aren't going to do anything about that unless you make them free for everybody. But even then, people need to understand that voter fraud is statistically irrelevant. It has never determined an election in the history of this country. Not to my knowledge, at least. If somebody wants to prove me wrong, they are welcome to do so. Oh, here's what's beautiful about this. She is endorsed by Michigan's largest pro-life organization. What does that tell you? That tells you she's pro-life. She's opposed to abortion rights, with no exceptions to rape or incest. How about that? So basically, she believes that the rapist has more rights than the rape victim. I mean, I could talk about her points of view all days, but honestly, I think she's just an absolute nightmare. She should not get the governorship. She does not deserve to be the governor. She should not be the governor whatsoever. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure, I mean, as little as it might be, I'm still going to do my part to ensure she does not win that position. Because people can say, oh, well, Gretchen Whitmer is the worst governor in the history of the state of Michigan. I haven't even been a Michigan citizen that long, and I looked up everything that she's done. I tell you what, Governor Whitmer is pretty legit. She gets it done. She's doing a great job. Let me explain. She has signed over 900 bipartisan bills. Now, consider the fact of how the political climate is nowadays and how divided everybody is. That's pretty damn good. 900 bipartisan bills. 4 balanced bipartisan budgets, building up water infrastructure. Let me clarify on that. She invested over $4 billion to upgrade drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater facilities, replace lead service lines, and build up dams supporting 57,000 jobs. That's pretty damn good if you ask me. Secured a $2 billion investment from Ford, creating 3,200 jobs. Won a $4.5 billion investment from Stellantis, creating 6,500 jobs. A $7 billion surplus. She turned a projected $3 billion deficit into a $7 billion surplus. How amazing is that? That's like a Bill Clinton economy right there. Now, anybody can say, oh, well, Bill Clinton was a terrible... Just remember when he left office, he left us in a surplus. And then George Bush came in and screwed it all up. Then we've been in a deficit ever since then. We've had a high national debt that keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. She's done largest ever investment in parks, historic investments in education. 180,000 Michiganders on path to higher educations or skills. A $7 billion investment from GM to create and retain 5,000 jobs. Fixing 16,000 lane miles of road and 1,200 bridges. Now, I drive on these roads all the time. Yes, it's a pain in the ass sometimes because you have to deal with these road conditions. But you know what? You can't be mad about them fixing the roads if you want the roads fixed. Especially for somebody that works in my industry and truck driving, the roads have got to be serviceable. They got to be fixed. So you know what? I fully support this. Child care investment helps 105,000 kids. $1.6 billion rainy day fund. That's like in the event that if Michigan needs this money for a rainy day, $1.6 billion. $400 per vehicle refunds. 25,000 total auto jobs. 0 tax increases on Michiganders. That's killing it. That's getting it done. Now, why exactly is it people don't like Gretchen Whitmer? It's because the GOP doesn't like Democrats. That's why. It's because she's a Democrat. It's because they think she's somebody that just practiced what, people insist that she is the person that caused mass genocide of elderly people during COVID, which isn't true. My God. The thing is, though, is that I haven't even been a Michigan citizen for that long, but Gretchen Whitmer is doing a fantastic job. But, hey, don't take my word for it. This is her job approval, all right? The survey found that 55.3% of Michigan voters approve of Gretchen Whitmer's performance as governor, compared to 40.1% who disapprove. Now, 55.3 is a pretty damn good margin. Now, voters who identify as strong Democratic had a 90.3 approval rating. Those who lean Democratic is 86.2%. Independent voters had a 49.1% approval rating, but that's because most independent voters are very limited government kind of people, anarchists, if you want to call them that. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I say it as. But voters who identify as strong Republican had 7.7 approval rating. But, of course, that's probably the hardcore, right-wing, hardcore, conservatards that always say things like that. Then you got those leaning Republicans has a 10.8 approval rating. Now, a lot of these people that are hardcore Republicans are probably all Trump Republicans, too. Because in my general area, I see the signs, my governor is an idiot. But I tell you what, though, I bet you they're pretty happy with how things are looking in Michigan right now. They just don't want to admit it. So they're just going to continue to say how, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is doing a terrible job. I think she's doing a fantastic job. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But I'm going to continue to do my research on this topic. But the thing is, though, Tudor Dixon, she may not be an established politician, and that may not always be a bad thing, but she has a terrible, terrible point of view on things. And honestly, anybody, the thing is my wife and I actually took part last week working with the Tuscola County Democrat Party because we want to do our part in ensuring the right people get put into office. I met a guy that's running for state senator for the 25th district. His name is Bert Van Dyke. Nice guy. Career educator, worked in the education field for 30 years, wants to be, a common sense kind of guy to work very bipartisan with Republicans and Democrats alike. I like that. I respect that. Him and I spoke in great detail about what the political climate is like. And, even though he's only been at this for about 4 weeks, he's very dedicated and he seems like he's very, very motivated to get things done. He wants to do common sense things. He wants to bring common sense back to Washington, which I fully respect on those regards. He seems very approachable. He seems like a very level-headed kind of guy, and that's what we need in office. We need level-headed people. We don't need these partisan hacks, these people that are just dedicated and die hard to their party. It's okay to have an affiliation. It's okay to be a Republican or a Democrat, but you have to remember, if you put your party first ahead of what's right for the country, then what good are you? I consider you a political hack. Now me, I still consider myself a pragmatic progressive. Yes, I'm going to be voting Democrat across the board. And I have no problem saying that because guess what? The Democrats have been putting forward some really good policies. Let alone the fact that, like I said, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has been doing a fantastic job for the state of Michigan. And I think she's going to continue to do a great job. We should continue to do our part in pushing forward strong candidates that actually put the citizens first. Not these partisan hacks that are only there just because they got their endorsement from the last president of the United States, who's an absolute monster of epic proportions, who tried to overthrow our country. People like that should not be getting into office. The cult of Trump needs to die away. I'm not saying they need to die. I'm saying the mentality needs to die away. At the end of the day, folks, I'm going to be continuing to push forward every week to talk about what's going on in the political climate in the state of Michigan, all the way up until the end of election in November. I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to see if I can get myself more involved, because I have to continue to do my part. And, my wife is going to be helping me out in these regards as well. She's even going to volunteer to work with the Tuscola County Democrats. We are going to do our part to ensure the right people get put into these office and these positions. And if people say, oh, well, we always knew you were a Democrat. Well, no, you didn't. You just assumed I was. It's just because I had more progressive policies. But I have been pushed further and further to the left by these idiots on the far right. They have pushed me further and further to the left, and they have not given me any reason or any pause to wonder, why should I vote Republican this year? They have not given me a good reason. They have not pushed forward any good candidates. There are no decent Republicans hardly anymore. So guess what? Yes, I am voting Democrat this year, regardless of how anybody might feel about that. I don't care. I'm doing this because I'm seeing the big picture. I am seeing the long game. And maybe, hopefully, in 2024, the guy I initially voted for, now Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, will run again. Because I would love to see him in the Oval Office. Because he's been doing a great job as Secretary of Transportation. Uniting the country, instead of this whole divisive crap that the last guy in office did. Fact of the matter is, it's our job to keep ourselves informed, know who your representatives are, know what district they are in, and get out there and vote. It's that simple, folks. Anyway, folks, I want to take the time to thank everybody that listened in on the replay, because I didn't have anybody listening live, but that's just because my schedule's a little bit off. But please, do me a solid. Hit like, hit share, get this podcast out there, because like I said, I'm chasing some serious clout here, folks. You can find me on TikTok, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on Twitter. Just type in the Alex Kirsch Project. You'll find it there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much, and y'all have a great, safe weekend.